الحرية والمساواة اللتان تتمتع بهما المرأة في بريطانيا اليوم هما ثمرة نضالات طويلة امتدت عبر الأجيال، بدءا من حركة حقوق المرأة أو ما يعرف بالسفراجات في عام 1918 التي تبنت الدفاع عن حقها في الانتخاب والترشح، إلى اليوم الذي تولت به مارغريت تاتشر منصب أول رئيسة وزراء في بريطانيا. والوجه المتغير لدور المرأة اليوم في الرياضة البريطانية يعكس استمرار مسيرة الكفاح هذه. وبالرغم من الإنجازات التي حققتها المرأة البريطانية اليوم في مجال الحقوق والمساواة، إلا أن نساء الأقليات العرقية لم يتمكن من تسجيل حضور لهن في هذه الحركة حتى نهايات القرن العشرين، ولم تقتصر مطالبهن على التعامل بالمثل مع الرجل، بل تعدت ذلك إلى المطالبة بحق ممارسة الرياضة.
I'm Rيملا أختر. I'm the former captain of the British Muslim Women's Futsal team, chair of the Muslim Women's Sport Foundation here in the UK, and also the first ever Muslim woman to sit on the English Football Association's council. In this episode on Al-Arabi TV, we'll be exploring the changing face of women's sports from the 90s through to today. Together, we're going to take a look at the important role that these women have been playing within sports, and crucially, how these champions should be used as the inspiration for the next generation of female sporting heroes.
ستسافر ريملا في أرجاء بريطانيا للقاء لاعبات من الأقليات العرقية لتتعرف على قصص نجاحهن وتحديات رحلة إثبات الوجود والهوية.
I'm here at the Bedford Centre for the History of Women to take a look at the changing face of women's sport in the 90s. Now, in order to understand the wider context of women in sport in general, how women, regardless of their ethnicity or their religion or where they came from, were inspired and influenced by sport and how they experienced it differently to others, I'm here to meet Professor Jennifer Hargreaves to talk to her a little bit about the fascinating time that this was for women of sport. She's formerly of the Brunel University and she's also author of the book Heroines of Sport. So tell me a little bit about Dartford College. It was the first ever women's sport-specific college, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, and in fact these photographs remind me of it. It was opened in 1885 by Martina Bergman-Osterberg, who studied in Sweden. She studied Swedish gymnastics, came to England. She worked for the London School Board teaching children in elementary schools, girls in elementary schools, doing mass gymnastics. But then she opened a college for middle-class women, basically, because she thought they were the only women who would be of the right calibre to be able to go into schools and teach children and, you know, learn about Swedish gymnastics and other forms of movement that would benefit the health and development of women at that time.
It's interesting to see that these are white British women that also had to go through that journey in terms of being feminine within sport. Is that something that you've seen develop since?
I think that when we're talking about this, we need to remember that we're talking essentially about women who are pretty privileged, middle-class women by and large, and sometimes elite women. They had always participated in different sporting or recreative activities like climbing, like riding and so on. And there were very few working class. Working class women were working and bringing kids up and didn't have good diets and were not very healthy very often. You know, I'm talking about the new sort of urbanized world that they were living in. And so it was a very privileged, you know, competitive sports were very privileged, and those women that fought for better equality for women vis-à-vis men were middle-class women. And that was the beginning of the sort of movement to get women into the Olympics, which of course was an all-male preserve initially.
I think one of the ways to look at public perception at any time is to take a look at the media. I'm about to meet High Money. She is the first ever acknowledged female sports photographer on Fleet Street. She's got over 40 years of experience as a photographer, and I think she's definitely the right person to be giving me the insight into how sportswomen were perceived in the media in the 90s.
I was brought up during the last days of the British Raj in India. And when my mother sent me, the eldest of 3 daughters, to start a new life in England, she really truly believed that we were so British that Britain would welcome us. But then I realised I wasn't Indian and I'm not British. I'm just nothing in between. So I was thinking, what is my identity? And it's evolved. And suddenly I realised this is my identity. This camera has made me, and the passion that I had, and I still have to this day, of photography. And this is my identity now. I don't have to be British, I don't have to be Indian, I don't have to be anything. I could just be me and the camera. This is the very first photograph I took of the crowds.
Oh, wow.
And you'll notice that there's only 2 women in this whole.
That is the first thing that struck me when I looked at this. So I can't even spot the women, to be honest. I can obviously see the kids. But
yeah, well, I had to look really, really hard.
Yeah. I think also, actually, as I was growing up in the 90s, what I realised was that the focus on women playing sports, or even girls playing sports, there was this sort of understanding that sports generally was a masculine thing. You know, who wants to get sweaty? Girls don't want to get sweaty. It's very unfeminine. And do you think that's something that was reflected through your work? Did you see that happening through the 90s?
Well, I can't say I did in terms of the fact that I would, say, photograph at Wimbledon and I'd see these women tennis players. They didn't care if they were sweaty, they didn't care if they had massive muscles. They wanted to win, then they wanted to be successful. So I think there was a transition during that time where women weren't even allowed to play at a proper stadium. They were just, you know, it's like the football match at Hackney Marshes. Well, so it has evolved, and now women are just taking their, they're taking their place amongst the elite of sport.
التمييز على أساس الجنس هو عائق عالمي يحد من مشاركة المرأة في المجال الرياضي بغض النظر عن أصولها العرقية، وخير دليل على ذلك قضية طبيبة نادي تشيلسي إيفا كارنيرو التي أثارت موجات جدل في الإعلام البريطاني بسبب تعرضها المستمر للهتافات المسيئة من قبل حشود المشجعين خلال مسيرتها المهنية. والسؤال هنا، هل ما زالت المرأة عرضة للضغوط المجتمعية على خلفية جنسها أو أنوثتها بغض النظر عن مدى النجاح الذي تحققه في مجال الرياضة؟ هذا ما تسعى ريملا للإجابة عنه في زيارتها لشيفيلد.
Now, we know that women right across the world in a number of industries have dealt with gender restrictions when it comes to leadership positions. But it seems that within the sports industry in particular, that glass ceiling is that far harder to reach, but also that far harder to breach. Now, let's be fair, there are a few women in sport in leadership positions, so the likes of Barbara Slater, who's the BBC's first ever female sports editor, and also we've just had our second successive female sports minister in Tracy Crouch. But these women are few and far between, and there are a number of reasons, ideas and theories as to why this may be. I'm going to meet with another woman who, like me, has reached that much further within the sports industry and assumed a leadership position. Bilqis Mahmood made history by becoming the world's and Britain's second female Asian and Muslim football agent for the English Football Association, and I'm really looking forward to meeting her in a second. So Bilqis, you are someone who's reached the top of the game, as it were, as a football agent here in England. Do you think that gender stereotypes exist within the sports industry and actually right across the board for women?
Very much so. I mean, the stereotypes permeate across various sectors, whether it's within the legal profession, whether it's within the sports industry, whether it's working for an institution. That there are those kind of cultural stereotypes that persist and permeate at various levels, starting from the very lowest level up to the most senior levels. And unfortunately, those things will continue to persist unless there is some positive strategic action that can be taken from people at the top tier level to be able to change that kind of influence and have it transported all the way through to the lower levels.
So do you think these issues that you've described around attitudinal versus behavioural change are the same in racism as compared to sexism?
Not to the same level, and certainly not to the same degree, because racism is a bit more innate, it's a bit more difficult to actually deal with. With sexism, there are support mechanisms in place, and so therefore, because of that support mechanisms, it's more comfortable to actually deal with, and it's relatively new, whereas with racism, it's very steeped, and people are quite afraid, or can be afraid, to actually be labelled as a racist rather than be labelled as a sexist.
التمييز على أساس الجنس ليس الحاجز الوحيد الذي تواجهه المرأة، فلا تزال الحواجز العنصرية قائمة حتى اليوم. توجهت ريملا إلى ألفورد في لندن لتتعرف عن قرب على سبل تعامل لاعبات الأقليات مع هذه العوائق.
So Roxana, you are the only female British Muslim champion of your sport. Can you tell me a little bit about how that feels, and also about your journey and maybe some of the challenges you've had to overcome?
Initially it began as a hobby. I started off at the age of 18. Ever since I could read, all I wanted to do was participate in a martial art, and I came across Muay Thai kickboxing at the age of 18 as a taster session in a school. And I fell in love with the sport, so I discovered this gym, and since then it's just been my passion in life, and the only thing that I sacrificed everything to come here. When I started, there wasn't any female-only classes, there weren't any female coaches, none of that was available, so I struggled along my journey. But now it's been an incredible journey where I teach classes now, and I run them every Sunday, and I have abundance of sisters turning up, and it's such a joy to see so many Muslim sisters participating in a combat sport, and just to keep healthy, just to have fun and stay in good shape, really.
You've had a really interesting journey so far, and one of the most amazing experiences, I'm guessing, during that time was the opportunity for you to be a torchbearer at the London 2012 Olympics. How was that for you?
It was such an honour to represent my country, to be carrying the Olympic flame in my hometown. It was amazing. You've
been challenging some of the stereotypes to do with Muslim women within sport. Do you think those stereotypes are starting to change within the industry?
Definitely. I don't see why religion and culture and your skin colour or your gender should come into play when it comes to sport. It should be an equal playing field. All that matters. When I step into the ring, I don't look at my opponent and think, where's she from, what's she doing, you know, how does she look. All I think about is how I'm going to defeat her talent, her strength, her weaknesses, and that's all she's concerned with me as well. So at the end of the day, the skill speaks for itself, and that should be our main focus.
I'm here at the Phoenix Theatre in London, where I've just watched the new stage musical Bend It Like Beckham. Tanvi Hans is the poster girl for this very musical. She's a female footballer who plays for Fulham Ladies Football Club and is also the woman that trained the actresses in this musical in terms of their football skills. She has a really interesting story. She grew up in Delhi in India, played for the first ever girls football team at school in Delhi, went on to university in Delhi where she played for the best ever football team for women in Delhi, and then came over to the UK, to the home of football, where she played at the University of Exeter and followed that by playing for Tottenham Hotspur Ladies FC and now Fulham Ladies FC. I'm going to speak to her a little bit about the representation of women in football on stage and on the television, and how accurate this portrayal is really to the real lives of women in football. What do you think, Tanvi, are the differences between how Jess and other female footballers are portrayed in the modern version of the Bend It Like Beckham story compared to back in 2002 when we saw the film originally?
Well, considering 2002 was a very long time ago, I think everyone around the world knows that football for women has really progressed, and you know, there's more of following now women's football. There are more opportunities, there are more teams playing, and starting from the grassroots level. And I think that would be the biggest difference. There are more opportunities to play. There are opportunities to be paid as well as a professional, though very, very limited compared to the men's. But you know, it really has come a long way since 2002. And you know, I would probably not have been here in England currently if there weren't opportunities. Because I know back in 2002 there was probably just a couple of teams that played here in England, but just since then there's a whole league system that's come into place, and you know, you have a chance for every caliber of player. There's a level for you to play at, and you can progress if you do well. And you know, the topmost level, the girls are actually paid. Probably not as much as the men, obviously, but it's a huge step. And you know, you can support yourself if you really, really work hard. You can support yourself through football now in some parts of the world, which is a lot, really.
ألهمت الأعمال المسرحية مثل Bend It Like Beckham أو لفها مثل بيكهام جيلا جديدا من النساء، وشجعتهن على لعب الرياضة. واليوم المئات من النساء حاضرات بقوة وينافسن بحرفية عالية في المحافل الرياضية الدولية. وقد شهدت الرياضة البريطانية مؤخرا بطلات في أبرز مجالاتها، من الجولف إلى التنس، ومن السباحة إلى ألعاب القوى. فما من رياضة تخطر ببالك إلا وتجد النساء يلعبنها. ستلتقي ريملا بأول ملاكمة من الأقليات الآسيوية في قلب مدينة برادفورد لتتعرف عن كثب على قصة نجاحها وسر شجاعتها التي جعلت منها مصدر إلهام ليس للنساء فقط، بل أمست قصتها مادة دسمة تلهم الفنانين والكتاب.
I'm almost at the Holly's boxing gym, which is where Ambreen used to train and now coaches other women. I'm really excited to be meeting her actually and talk to her about her journey and how she got into boxing and some of the obstacles she might have faced. Ambreen, hello.
How are you?
Very well, how are you?
I'm good, yeah, I'm really good.
It's lovely to finally meet
I know.
you 6 years on from hearing about you.
It's been a while, isn't it?
Yeah, how you been?
Yeah, really good. How are you?
Good, yeah, very well. Long journey up to Bradford.
That's it, breathe up. So now I want you to follow up with the right hand, so you're going to go back. Good.
One of the comments that you've had is that boxing is shameful. What does that mean?
Culturally, like, my dad's Pakistani, so when I did the boxing, I was living in an Asian community, and it's a cultural thing. People, you know, would say like girls should be in the kitchen, you know, cooking food and looking after the man of the family, and you know.
So what about femininity? What do you feel about that, especially given that, you know, people have made comments about you, like you're like a man. How do you feel about those comments and about femininity?
When I was in school, I got a few comments when I started boxing. When I came into the local newspapers, you know, the boys would come up and say, you know, you look like a man, you've got broad shoulders, you know, you're tomboy and this and that. So I actually think I'm quite girly. I like to have, you know, my makeup done, hair done. Normally I like to have my nails done. I think if a guy can do it, a girl can do it too. Like, I do think men and women should be treated equally. So it was like, I don't want to be labelled as a girl boxer. I don't want to be labelled as a, you know, I'm sure boys don't want to be labelled as a boy boxer. I just wanted him to see me as a boxer, full stop.
How about you? Being a prominent Muslim sportswoman in Britain, Ambreen's inspired a number of women, and not just sportswomen. Her story has inspired British Muslim playwright Aisha Zia to write the play No Guts, No Heart, No Glory. And this play ran at the world-famous Edinburgh Festival in 2014. It also won the Scotsman Fringe Award and received a commendation, a special commendation, from Amnesty International's Freedom of Expression Awards.
Brilliant, bring that round. And again, the left, add an uppercut to it as well. Uppercut, boom. Good.
Kick me, punch me, go on, swear. You can't do anything to me. This is nothing.
Aisha, you wrote the play No Guts, No Heart, No Glory about Ambreen Siddiq. How important, Aisha, do you think it is the fact that you're a woman who's written about another woman's story? How important do you think that is in the grander scheme of things in terms of empowering women from all backgrounds?
I think it was really important to basically be a role model for other girls. And one of the things that I really connected with after speaking to Ambreen was that she wanted to be a role model, and she wanted to be brave, and she wanted to follow her dreams, basically. And I think that's really inspiring. And I think I had quite a difficult journey getting to where I was getting to, and I think I had to be really honest about what I wanted to do, and I wanted to be a writer. So I guess being a role model for other girls was quite important.
It's not like we're even doing anything wrong. Sometimes we're just being ourselves. You talk behind our backs, you talk down at us.
We can't even speak. We can't even speak the truth.
Whose truth? My truth, your truth, their truth? How can we be truthful if we're afraid?
So what do you think is the role of arts to actually help bring about more equality, more gender parity?
I think with the arts, I think it's a really safe and healthy place to start a debate, so people can start talking about things. And I think through fiction in general, you can show an argument. So you can have an argument, and then you can have a counter-argument, and then you leave it open for discussion.
I'm about to visit an all-female football academy, where I want to explore with those women what pushes them to put so much effort into taking part in sport. Is it the fame? Is it the money? Is it the fact that they want to challenge these stereotypes? Or is it purely for the love and passion of the game?
Oh, great goal.
All my family plays it, so like my own sister and my dad play it, so I've been brought up with it and watching it on telly all the time, like watching England play. I think that I think it is seen as a men's sport. I think that it is seen like women can't do it. Like, it's always been man's sport, so we need to try break through and get it.
It's the passion of winning and playing with your teammates and just having the fun and not just stuck at home and everything, just play with everyone.
Like, train harder, because we know that everyone focuses on men, so we train harder to try and get the coverage?
Well, I think more boys are into football, but I still think they should get the same funding so they can get more media and on telly and everything.
The winner, second take,
non-bib,
of the Chewit Cup is a non-bib.
Yay!
Girls, quick cool down.
Okay, girls. They got an assist anyway. I know, what's that about? I don't even do that normally.
Lauren Joyce and Beth Iverson leading me cool down.
Women have been dealing with all sorts of prejudices, barriers and stereotypes over this time, and they're just fighting to access their rights for sport and access their right for opportunity for all.
كل قصة نجاح لامرأة في المجال الرياضي تحمل بذور ولادة بطلة جديدة وربما بطلات أخريات، حتى يأتي اليوم الذي تلهم به هذه القصص جيلا بأكمله من نساء الأقليات العرقية في بريطانيا الغد.